The IMSA GT Championship produced some of the craziest racing cars North America has ever seen, as the likes of Porsche, Nissan and Jaguar all burned cash in an attempt to one-up each other for the best part of a decade. But amidst this highly competitive field, one team was so effective, some say it killed the entire class. Despite the Japanese badging, the Toyota Eagle Mark III was, at least in part, an American creation. The brainchild of Dan Gurney and Carroll Shelby, All American Racers was founded in 1964. With two of the biggest names in American motorsport at the helm, expectations were high from the start. The team's initial success in open-wheel racing caught the eye of automotive giant Toyota, with whom AAR joined forces in 1983 with the intention of tackling the IMSA GT Championship. This particular chapter of AAR's history is one I've talked about before in my video on the Celica GTO, but in summary, the team tasted victory in the GTU class in 1984 and took top honours with their GTO spec Celica in 1987. An incoming regulation change designed to hinder cars that used forced induction put an end to AAR's GTO exploits at the end of 1988, but with an IMSA championship now under their belt, Gurney and his crew had done enough to secure a shot at the big leagues, the Grand Touring prototype class. Toyota supplied AAR with two Group C spec 88Cs, one of which the firm chose to modify to create the HF89. Its 2.1-litre turbocharged four-cylinder was retained, a decision that was met with skepticism from higher-ups at Toyota, who knew firsthand the difficulties of making a four-cylinder engine last a full 24-hour race. The changes made by AAR to create the HF89 were comprehensive. The car featured an exceptionally stiff aluminium honeycomb chassis, the engine and new Hewland gearbox were mounted on a separate subframe, while double wishbone suspension was fitted at each corner. The springs and dampers were mounted almost vertically in order to make room for the Venturi tunnels that accelerated air underneath the car, creating an area of low pressure that sucked it to the track thanks to the ground effect. The Eagle HF89 was born, and with 800 brake horsepower on tap, though it only ran 680 in race trim, it certainly wasn't short of speed. However, what the HF89 had in raw pace, it sorely lacked in stability. AAR driver Juan Manuel Fangio II, the five-time Formula One world champion's nephew, complained of insufficient front downforce and a narrow setup window. As he himself put it, quote, "When we were in the window, the car was good in every way, but out of the window, the car was not right at all." To offset the risk of AAR's aggressive strategy, they decided to run a second car, an 88C with a larger fuel tank and smaller rear wheels. This proved prudent, as the HF89's maiden 1989 campaign yielded little success. Those setup issues, coupled with poor reliability, meant Fangio could only manage a best result of 4th at Del Mar. By contrast, the 88C secured all three of the team's podium finishes. Needless to say, changes were needed if AAR was to turn this around. Their next effort, creatively dubbed the HF90, also known as the Eagle Mark II, featured an upgraded cooling system, revised bodywork, and was crucially more reliable. We'll continue this story after a short break. If you're wondering why the background's changed, and I'm holding this microphone, which I promise is not going to stay forever, it's because I've just moved house. And thanks to this video's sponsor FlexiSpot, I've got a fantastic new chair and desk to go along with the new digs. This may shock some of you, but I'm quite tall. And my last desk setup was a bit too low, had started to sag, and the chair was completely cooked. Frankly, it was never that great to begin with either. Don't cheap out on chairs. For a guy who spends so much time sitting at a desk, I really could have done with a chair that I could customize to fit me. Thankfully, the FlexiSpot C7 Max has a bunch of movement, so I can properly support my back, thank God, support my arms, the armrests on my old chair were not positioned right at all, and support my head with the adjustable headrest. I'm sure you get the picture by now, but I do want to really emphasize just how much better this is than any chair I've ever owned. I'd be over the moon with the chair alone, but paired with FlexiSpot's E7 Pro height adjustable desk, I can feel myself getting a bit emotional. Being able to lift it to a standing desk is so good. Sitting for so many hours a day can get old fast, so being able to simply lift the desk and keep working is brilliant. It's also got a massive weight capacity of 180 kilograms. I can actually hop on there with both monitors, my PC and my laptop, twice without reaching the weight limit. It's also super stable, as you'd expect. No infuriating wobbles or worryingly shaky legs, just a rock-solid surface all of the time. As if that's not enough, the desk and chair come with a 15-year and 10-year warranty respectively. So if on the off chance something does need fixing, you've got a decade or more during which that isn't your problem, which as bonuses go is a pretty good one. So check out the E7 Pro standing desk and C7 Max ergonomic chair by following the links in the description, and make sure to use the discount codes YTE730 or C730 for $30 off your order. Thanks again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this section of the video and kitting out my new office with some great furniture. Now back to the video. Fangio was able to claim the project's first pole position and win at Heartland after outpacing the Nissan NPT90 of Jeff Brabham. 3 further victories at Sonoma, San Antonio and Del Mar allowed the Argentinian to salvage 5th in the drivers' standings. But by the end of 1991, it was clear the Eagle Mark II had run its course. Fangio may have taken another win at Watkins Glen that year, but there was little denying Nissan's technical and competitive superiority. Keen not to be caught short, AAR had already started development of the Eagle Mark III in 1991. Chief designer John Ward and chief aerodynamicist Hiro Fujimori set about completely reworking the car's aerodynamic concept. Ward devised a separate nose diffuser that directed airflow under the car. The narrow aluminium monocoque allowed for larger than average venturi tunnels that ran the rest of the car's length, with air also being ducted through the doors to the side-mounted intercoolers and radiators through a vast, whale-like opening at the front of the car. As if this wasn't enough, Fujimori also designed a unique dual-element rear wing. The upper section acted as a conventional wing, while the bottom element created an area of low pressure behind the car that pulled air through the venturi tunnels. As a result, the Mark III produced an estimated 4.5 metric tons of downforce at 200 miles an hour, roughly 1.5 times that of its immediate predecessor. The Mark II's 2.1-litre 4-cylinder engine was retained, albeit with the boost turned up. It now produced over 800 brake horsepower in race trim and up to 1,000 in qualifying. That may have been around 150 less, somehow, than the then current Nissan NPT90, but AAR achieved that output with only 2/3 of the cylinders. This allowed for a tighter package that left more room for the venturi tunnels. Fujimori's fantastic wing didn't grace the car from the start. Even so, the Eagle Mark III turned heads from the moment it debuted at Laguna Seca in 1991, thanks to its high-sided bodywork and unusual-sounding 4-cylinder engine. The Mark III's pace was immediately apparent. Fangio secured a front-row start in qualifying and promptly dispatched the pole-sitting Chevrolet-powered Intrepid RM1 of Wayne Taylor in the race. The Argentinian built a 50-second lead and looked set for a dominant win, before committing a pit lane infraction that resulted in a 1-lap stop-and-go penalty. A second violation resulted in 35 seconds being added to Fangio's race time, relegating him to 7th. But having led 54 of the 84 laps and secured the fastest lap of the race, the Eagle Mark III's pace was clear for all to see. Wins for Fangio at Portland and Del Mar cemented the Mark III's reputation, and come the start of 1992, it was clear AAR had an absolute missile on their hands. Fangio won 7 of the 13 rounds, which included a memorable win at the 12 Hours of Sebring following a tight battle with Nissan. PJ Jones, the team's second driver, took victory at Portland and Del Mar, which brought the team's final win tally to 9, enough to claim first and second in the GTP drivers' standings. AAR dominated 1992 to a degree most teams could only dream of, but for 1993, everything changed, as AAR, in spite of their enormous success, managed to crush their rivals to an even greater extent. That's not to say they had it all exactly their own way. The first race of 1993 was the famed 24 Hours of Daytona, and to call AAR's road to victory uneven would be a gross understatement. The number 98 car of Jones, Mark Dismore and Rocky Moran took top honours in qualifying, with Jones setting a time of 1 minute 33.8, a lap record that stood for over a quarter of a century. The 99 car of Fangio, Andy Wallace and Kenny Atchison lined up second and promptly surged into an early lead on race day. It looked to be AAR's race to lose, and boy did they try. The 99 car was struck by engine problems that forced it out of contention. It was now a straight fight between the sole remaining Toyota at the front and the Jaguar XJ12D of Scott Goodyear and Scott Pruitt. Or rather it would have been, were it not for Moran clattering a hay bale and vomiting mid-stint. As a result, Jones was forced to drive for 13.5 hours straight, a heroic bid that looked to be in vain, as come sunrise the Jaguar held a slim lead. That was until a problem with the rear axle caused a 74-minute pit stop for the Jag, allowing the number 98 car to take victory. Not bad for an entrant that was 30 laps down at one point. Jones's mega stint proved well worth it in the end, and that's what endurance racing is all about, baby! At the next race in Miami, Fangio made up for his false start in Daytona by cruising to a comfortable win, a feat he repeated a month later at Sebring, and again at the next 4 rounds to complete a run of 6 consecutive wins. AAR chose not to contest the 8th round at Road America, not that it would have mattered as Jones and Fangio secured a 1-2 at the next race at Laguna Seca, where it's worth mentioning, the Mark III's immense downforce allowed its drivers to take the notorious Turn 4 flat out. Another win for Fangio at Portland brought his win tally to 7, while Jones took victory at the season finale in Phoenix. 10 entries, 10 pole positions, 10 wins and 7 1-2 finishes. AAR's 1993 campaign unequivocally represents one of the most staggeringly dominant performances in motorsport history. Such was the extent of the Mark III's domination, in fact, that the subsequent cancellation of the GTP class at the end of 1993 would probably have been a relief for Toyota's rivals. In Europe, Toyota were the ones in need of relief. Check out the TS010 rib breaker story here. GTP was replaced by the World Sports Car Prototype class for 1994, bringing an end to one of the most exciting eras in prototype racing history. An end which was dominated by one of the most outrageous competition cars ever built. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.